The wolf queens took me to their private chambers to decide what I was. I left with blood on my face and something far worse in my head. Chapter 5. Among the Lunas. They took me while the house was still holding its breath. Not after, not when it was safe, while it was still deciding whether what had just happened was control or failure. My arm was in someone's hand, not tight, not forced, but certain in a way that made resistance feel like something that belonged to a different version of me. I was already moving before I realized I'd been moved, my steps falling into rhythm with theirs as the courtyard bled away behind us in fragments of sound and heat. Derek had not been beaten. That was the part my mind couldn't settle around. He hadn't been thrown down, hadn't been dragged away, hadn't been broken. He had been contained, barely. The memory clung to me like static, the way the air had warped around him, the way the ground itself had seemed to hesitate under his weight, as if even stone questioned whether it could hold him, the way the three of them had moved, not in panic, not in fear, but in something far more unsettling. Effort, measured, precise, and still not quite enough. Behind us, Fenris still roared as new sortings unfolded, but something in the sound had shifted. It was no longer the easy violence of wolves testing each other for dominance. There was an edge to it now, something thinner, sharper. Laughter came too loud, voices rose too quickly. The rhythm of it felt wrong, like a heartbeat that hadn't decided if it was steady or about to break. My wolf tracked it instinctively, tension coiling low in my spine, not pulling me back, but refusing to forget. That wasn't over. That wasn't even close to over. We turned into the corridor, and the world shifted. The light narrowed into thin slits high along the walls, falling in pale ribbons that never reached the floor. The stone beneath my feet changed, older, smoother, untouched by the wear that marked everything outside. I tried to speak. Clotho cut the word in half with a flick of her hand.
Not here. Not yet, Luna.
No softness, no room for it. I swallowed the rest. Her tone was not cruel, but there was no softness in it either. Only control, only timing. I swallowed the rest of the words before they could escape. My wolf recoiled inward, pressing low, as if trying to hide from the moment. So much for knowing what to say. The noise behind us did not fade so much as it stopped belonging, cut off by something unseen as we reached the spiral staircase. It rose before us, like something pulled from a dream that had never belonged to the waking world. Stone suspended in perfect arcs, each step held in place by nothing I could see, the spaces between them filled with pale silver light that spilled downward like liquid moonlight. There were no rails, no supports, only magic and intention, and something older than either. I stepped forward and stopped. Something met me. It brushed across my skin like a question, like a hand that did not touch and yet felt everything it needed to know. It prickled along my arms, my throat, my spine, tasting, measuring, deciding. For a heartbeat, I wasn't sure it would let me pass. Then it parted. The tension snapped, and the air shifted, cooler now, softer, as if whatever guarded this place had accepted me, if only provisionally. Goose flesh rose across my skin, not from cold, but from the sensation of being seen without being looked at. We climbed. Their presence shaped the silence around us. 3 distinct weights that did not press, but defined everything they touched. One ahead, setting the pace. One at my side, close enough that I could feel the steady rhythm of her breathing. One behind, unseen but undeniable. My wolf adjusted before I did, posture shifting in ways I couldn't name, not lowering, not yielding, but recognizing.
This is not just your dormitory.
Lachesis said at last, her voice soft but carrying, threading through the quiet with quiet authority.
This is ours, and it is not a place you enter twice as the same girl.
We stopped before the door. It was unremarkable, in every way that should have made it easy to dismiss. Dark wood, worn smooth, iron fittings dulled with age, no carvings, no symbols, nothing that declared what lay beyond it. And yet, the air gathered around it, drawn inward, as if something waited on the other side, with weight enough to bend the space toward it. My wolf stepped back inside me slightly, not retreating, recognizing. I reached for the door without deciding to. The wood beneath my fingers was cool, but not lifeless. The grain felt intentional, as if every touch it had ever received had meant something. Behind me, I felt their attention narrow, not on the door, on me, on what I would do, on how I would choose to do it. Fine, I pushed. The door opened without resistance, yielding immediately, as if it had never been meant to keep me out, only to mark the moment I chose to enter. The room beyond revealed itself slowly, not because it was hidden, but because it refused to be taken in all at once. At first, it was only light, soft, silver, layered in pale whites and deep shadow. Then came scent, lilac, lavender, roses, woven so seamlessly into the air that it felt less like perfume and more like the room itself had been taught to bloom. Only then did the space begin to take shape. It stretched wide, far larger than it had any right to be, its edges softened by drifting veils of silk and lace that hung in gentle arcs, catching and scattering the light into shifting patterns. They moved slightly, though no breeze touched them, as if the room itself breathed. 4 massive beds stood at the edges in a perfect compass formation, each framed by tall posts wrapped in sheer fabric, their interiors layered with enough pillows and furs to swallow a body whole. They were distant enough for privacy, but positioned so that no one within the space could ever truly be out of sight. At the center, water, a wide bathing pool sunk into marble, steam rising in soft curls from its surface. Petals and lily pads drifted lazily across it, untouched, as though time moved differently here. Above it, suspended in the air, a massive crystal shaped like a full moon hovered in silence, its surface catching the light and breaking it into soft, prismatic fragments that danced across the walls. My breath slowed without permission, my wolf stilled. This was not a place meant for living. It was a place meant for becoming. I stepped fully inside. Something in me shifted. Behind me, the door closed without sound. Then Lachesis spoke.
That was close.
Her voice settled into the room like something that had been waiting for silence to claim it.
Did you feel it, sisters?
She asked. And though her tone did not rise, something within it had sharpened.
The 3 of us could barely contain him.
Barely. The word landed harder than anything else she had said. My fingers curled at my sides.
Next time,
Lachesis continued, quieter now.
it may not be enough.
Atropos answered without hesitation.
Then we will have Bastion intervene.
No doubt, no hesitation, just inevitability. Clotho's voice followed, smoother, more deliberate.
And how much longer?
She asked.
Before it becomes pack against pack.
The question changed to something in the air, subtle but immediate. Atropos did not answer right away. When she did, her voice was colder.
As long as Derek howls like the wind, we will not fear his storm. The empty can rattles the most. When he falls silent, then I fear we will have war on our hands.
Silence followed. I swallowed. The conversation was not for me, but I was in it anyway. Clotho seated herself at the foot of one of the beds, as if the room had been waiting for her. Atropos remained standing, slightly apart, her stillness the kind that suggested not rest, but restraint held in check. Lachesis lingered at the edge of the firelight, the faint tracery of runes beneath her skin, shifting with her breath, alive in ways I could not yet understand. They did not gather, they aligned around me. My wolf lowered, not submission, recognition. Clotho's eyes found mine.
I am Clotho,
She said.
3rd year Luna.
Atropos, 4th.
Lachesis,
The last said softly.
2nd.
The silence that followed was no longer about Derek. It was about me. Clotho leaned forward slightly.
Do you know what you are now?
The question did not strike so much as settle. deliberate and unhurried, into the space between us, as though it had been placed there with care rather than thrown. The room seemed to hold it in place. The warmth of the fire, the stillness of the air, even the faint scent of flowers woven through everything pressed inward around it, waiting not for sound, but for something that felt like truth. I opened my mouth, already searching for the answer that should have come easily, the one that sounded correct, official, safe. Cybele Damaris, Luna of first year, I said, but the words felt thin even as I spoke them, my voice trailing at the end in a way I couldn't quite control. It was wrong. I knew it immediately, not because it wasn't true, but because it wasn't enough. The answer didn't fill the space Clotho had created. It shrank inside it, like something too small to survive being seen. The silence that followed didn't stretch or fade. It deepened, gaining weight until it felt like something tangible, something that pressed gently but insistently against my skin, waiting to see what I would do next. Atropos's gaze moved over me then, not abruptly, not even noticeably at first, but with a precision that made it feel like she had been studying me the entire time and had only now decided to let me feel it. Her attention traced the small betrayals my body hadn't yet learned to hide, the tightness in my shoulders, the way my breath hitched before settling, the slight uncertainty in my stance, as if I were still waiting for permission to stand where I already was.
She doesn't even know who she is,
Atropos said, not addressing me, but placing the observation between them like a conclusion already reached.
She knows what she was, and fears the seed of failure still rooted in her. She has not yet decided to bloom.
The word failure tightened something low in my stomach before I could stop it, a reflex I recognized too well and hated even more for being so easy to read. Clotho did not look away from me as she answered.
No,
She said, her tone smooth, almost thoughtful, as if she were considering a detail rather than delivering judgment.
and she fears the very son she must grow toward.
The accuracy of it landed harder than the accusation. It felt like being seen in a way I hadn't agreed to, and worse, a way I couldn't deny. Lachesis shifted at the edge of the firelight, the movement subtle, but enough to alter the shape of the room, like the air itself acknowledged her presence.
As usual, you two rush to judgment.
She said, quieter than the others, though no less certain.
She hasn't had time. The stones name quickly. The body does not follow as fast. Give the poor girl a season.
A season. The idea brushed against something in me that wanted to cling to it, to the possibility of time, of space, to become, instead of being forced into it. Clotho exhaled slowly, as if that response had been expected all along.
Then we begin there,
She said. Her attention moved, not away from me, but through me, past the question I had failed to answer, toward the center of the room where the pool waited, warm and quiet and far too inviting.
The dust of the courtyard still clings to her.
She continued, again speaking not to me, but about me, as if I had already been set aside for evaluation rather than conversation.
Let us water this new Luna and see what kind of bloom she proves to be.
Her hand lifted slightly.
Ladies,
The word did not break the moment. It absorbed it, redirecting it without effort. Atropos moved first, and the absence of hesitation in her was almost more striking than anything she did. She did not check whether I was watching. She did not consider modesty or spectacle. She simply acted, shedding what she wore with the same clean efficiency she had shown in everything else, stepping into the pool as though it had always belonged to her. The water welcomed her fully, rising along her form in a slow, indulgent embrace, steam curling upward around her as she submerged and rose again, entirely at ease in a space that had been designed to soften anyone less certain.
She hesitates.
Atropos observed, settling into the heat as though it were her natural element.
Not from fear, from uncertainty. She is still deciding how she is meant to exist in the presence of power.
The words landed because they were true, and because I could feel how easily that truth could be used against me. Lachesis followed more slowly, her movements deliberate, carrying an awareness of space that felt different from Atropos's clean precision.
She hasn't had anyone to protect her,
she said, stepping into the water as the faint glow beneath her skin slipped beneath the surface.
Only things that wanted to break her.
That struck deeper than I wanted it to, touching something I had learned to keep buried beneath quieter habits: obedience, stillness, survival. Clotho remained where she was for a moment longer, her gaze still fixed on me, measuring, weighing.
Then she should have learned faster,
she said quietly.
Fenris does not wait for understanding to catch up with responsibility.
Lachesis's posture shifted, sharper now.
We are wolves,
she replied.
but we don't have to behave like animals every moment we draw breath.
They did not wait for me to decide. They did not need to. The room itself pressed the expectation forward. The warmth of the water, the softness of the air, the quiet luxury of the space, working together to strip away the sharp edges of resistance. Refusal didn't feel impossible. It felt misplaced. My fingers moved to the edge of my clothes, slower than theirs had been, more aware. The fabric felt heavier than it should have, like something that marked me as separate, unfinished, still carrying the imprint of what I had been before the stones had spoken.
She holds herself like prey,
Atropos said. My spine tightened before I could stop it. The reaction immediate, instinctive.
It's almost like she used to be Omega,
Lachesis added, softer but no less pointed. Heat flared under my skin, not from the water, not yet, but from the recognition of being seen through that lens so easily. Clotho tilted her head slightly.
And which is more dangerous?
She asked.
An Omega who dreams of power, or a Luna who still behaves like one?
The question hung there, deliberate and unresolved, shaping the space I was about to step into. I moved. The water closed around me slowly, not sharp, not overwhelming, patient. Heat sank into muscle and bone, loosening something I hadn't realized I was holding. My shoulders dropped before I could stop them, and the moment they did, their tension sharpened.
She yields to comfort,
Atropos said.
Or she's never been allowed it,
Lachesis replied. Clotho said nothing. That silence carried more weight than either of them. The water shifted as they moved, each of them adjusting, without breaking the illusion of ease. They did not surround me in any obvious way, but the space changed all the same, angles tightening, presence aligning, until I stood at the center of something structured and intentional. Clotho drifted closer, not enough to touch, but enough to be felt through the water, the subtle displacement marking her presence with quiet certainty.
She watches more than she speaks, she said. That can be shaped into strength.
At a cost,
Atropos replied.
All strength has a cost, and some costs hollow what they refine.
They spoke as if I were already something being worked, not someone being addressed. Lachesis moved last, her hand lifting slowly before settling lightly against my shoulder. The contact was gentle, grounding in a way that made everything else sharper. I could feel the difference between her touch and the absence of touch from the others, and that difference mattered more than it should have.
She feels it,
Lachesis said softly, her gaze resting on me with something that was almost gentle.
The attention.
Of course she does,
Clotho replied, her tone smooth, untroubled.
She has never been taught to control it. She's just a girl,
Lachesis said, a note of quiet insistence threading through her voice.
Have some compassion.
Atropos' expression did not change, but something in her gaze settled, colder, more precise, as though a conclusion had simply been brought forward into speech.
Mercy is not a luxury we can afford,
she said.
Since your chosen mate let his love for you cripple him when you needed him most.
The words did not strike like an attack. They settled, and something in me, the reflex to disappear, moved and stopped. It didn't finish. Like a step taken toward a place that no longer existed, something in me held, small, quiet. "I am right here," I said. The words didn't shake. They didn't ask, "You can speak to me," instead of "about me." Clotho saw it immediately.
"There," she said.
All three of them stilled, not pausing, not freezing, but focusing in a way that made the air itself feel more precise.
"She resists,"
Clotho continued.
Late.
Atropos said.
"Still better than silence."
Lachesis murmured. And this time, there was something unmistakable in her voice. Not approval, not pride, but a quiet, grounded recognition. The kind that came from having stood where I stood and remembering what it cost. Her hand remained at my shoulder, the contact steady, not guiding, not restraining, present.
"She showed empathy to Samantha."
Lachesis continued, her gaze resting on me now, not measuring, not dissecting.
"That's not nothing. Most don't have the courage to do something like that. The first time they're seen like this, they either fold and run to us, or they overcorrect and become something like Derek."
There was no performance in it, no angle, just truth.
"She held herself together,"
Lachesis said more quietly.
"and she chose not to break anyone to do it."
Atropos did not interrupt her, but something in the air shifted the moment Lachesis finished, as if the room itself had taken what was offered and passed it along to be refined.
She destabilized Derek's pack.
Atropos said, her voice even, unhurried, as though she were not responding to Lachesis so much as extracting the structure beneath her words.
Without challenging him directly.
Her gaze settled fully on me now, not colder, not harsher, but more exact.
His beta was undermined.
She continued.
That hesitation will spread. It will not remain contained.
The words carried no admiration, only consequence.
She created a fracture.
Atropos said.
Whether she understands it or not.
Clotho watched the exchange without speaking, her attention moving between them, not weighing emotion, not even the action itself, but the pattern forming between them. When she spoke, it was with quiet certainty.
"True,"
Clotho said.
"and she shows instinct."
Not praise, not surprise, recognition. Her gaze returned to me, sharper now, more deliberate.
"That instinct will need to be refined,"
she added.
"Directed."
Lachesis' hand shifted slightly at my shoulder, not tightening, but present in a different way now.
"She's not a tool,"
Lachesis said, and though her voice remained soft, there was something firm beneath it now.
"She's a girl who needs our help."
Atropos did not look at her.
She is both,
Atropos replied.
And Fenris will treat her as both, or she will be defenseless when the other houses do.
Clotho did not correct either of them. That was the answer. The space settled around that truth, not resolved, not softened, accepted. And in that moment, something became clear in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't about the bath. It wasn't even about the question. It was about what I did when I was seen. Clotho's gaze held mine. Something in her expression shifted, as though she had decided that force would not yield what she wanted, and something else might.
"I may have come at you too directly,"
she said, her tone smooth, composed, the apology offered without weight, without vulnerability, like a blade sheathed just long enough to be repositioned. She stepped closer. Her fingers brushed lightly along my arm, slow, deliberate, not comforting, calibrating, feeling for tension, for response.
"Allow me to approach you differently,"
she continued, her voice lowering just enough to feel more intimate, more instructive.
"Aluna is not undone by being seen,"
she said.
"She decides what is seen and what it means, though at present everything you are is visible to us and to your enemies."
My breath tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of it, from the understanding that nothing I did here would remain small.
Every hesitation,
Atropos continued.
every uncertainty, every place inside yourself you have not yet claimed will be used against you.
Lachesis' hand shifted slightly at my shoulder.
"And every male will test you,"
she said quietly.
to see if you yield to their claim.
The word settled into the water between us. Claim. Clotho did not look away.
And what will you do?
She asked. Well,
When you are seen as something to be taken.
Atropos' voice followed, clean and deliberate.
Something to dominate and cage.
Lachesis' fingers tightened, just slightly. Something to love. 3 meanings, interlocked. Atropos' gaze held mine.
Answer.
And this time, there was nowhere left to retreat inside the silence. They did not lean forward. They did not press. They didn't need to. The room had already closed around the moment, the water holding its heat, the air thick with expectation, every path narrowing until there was nothing left but the shape of the question and the certainty that they believed they already knew what would come next. I could feel it in the way they looked at me, already concluded. Whatever I said, whatever I chose, it would fall somewhere inside the structure they had prepared for me. Submission, defiance, collapse, adaptation. They had seen it before, measured it, categorized it. My breath steadied, but not with calm, with resistance. It wasn't loud at first. It didn't surge or flare. It tightened, low and coiled. Something that had spent too long learning when to stay still, when to lower its head, when to survive by not being seen, and now found itself being watched from every angle, handled, weighed, spoken about like I was already decided. My wolf felt it before I did. A slow lift, a bristle along the spine. Not fear, offense. They think they know me. The thought didn't come clean or composed. It came with heat, with the lingering echo of the courtyard, still clinging to me, with Derek's voice cutting through memory like a spark, catching dry brush.
If she tries to get in your head again, you bite her.
The memory didn't sit. It moved. Not advice, not something to consider. Instinct. Something in me aligned around it before I could smooth it down, before I could turn it into something more acceptable, more controlled, more Luna. No, not this time. Clotho stood closest, composed as ever, her gaze steady, receptive, already shifting into something more precise, more measured, as if she had adjusted her approach and was preparing to guide the moment where she wanted it to go. She thought she could shape this. She thought she could shape me. Something sharp rose in my chest. Not loud, not wild, but clear. So you think you have me all figured out? The thought didn't soften. Fuck you. I moved, not careful nor controlled, with killer intent. The water parted as I closed the distance. My hand didn't drift this time. It took. Clotho saw it. Of course she did. Her eyes sharpened. Too late. My fingers closed around her wrist, skin to skin, and this time I bit. The world didn't dissolve. It tore open, not into a single image or a clear memory, but into fragments that slammed into place over what was already there, layered wrong, out of sequence, too sharp at the edges to hold comfortably. Stone beneath bare feet, cold, older than the dormitory, older than anything meant for comfort. Clotho, smaller, not in body, but in presence, stood at the center of it, her posture held too straight, too still, like something braced for impact that hadn't come yet. Atropos stood before her, unmoved, unyielding.
You will speak,
Atropos said, her voice the same, quiet, controlled, but without the softened edges she wore now.
or you will be stripped of what you have not yet proven you deserve.
There was someone else. I felt it, more than saw it. A presence at the edge of the room, like warmth remembered rather than held. Something open, something unguarded. Trust, that was what it was. Given freely, waiting. Clotho did not answer, not immediately. Nothing in her posture betrayed the fracture already forming beneath it, but I could feel it, tight, contained, forced into stillness the way something living is forced into a shape it was never meant to hold.
You may keep her confidence,
Atropos continued.
or you may keep your station.
The words did not rise. They settled, heavy, certain. There was no cruelty in them. That was the worst part. Just inevitability. Clotho's breathing didn't change. Her gaze didn't waver. Her control held perfectly, and beneath it, something broke, not loudly, not visibly, but completely. When she spoke, her voice was even, chosen. The warmth at the edge of the room vanished, not fading, gone, as if it had never been permitted to exist. The space sealed around the decision. Atropos did not move, but something in the air shifted, final, irreversible, approved. The vision collapsed, not gently, snapped. The heat of the bath surged back around me, the water pressing in, the room reasserting itself all at once, but the feeling of it, the shape of what I had touched, remained, sharp and unfinished, lodged somewhere behind my ribs. Clotho's wrist was still in my hand. Her skin was warm, steady, but something in her knew, not what, not how, but enough. I released her, not retreating, nor apologizing, letting go because I chose to. I had gotten my pound of flesh. My gaze lifted to meet hers. "You asked me what I would do," I said, my voice quieter now, but no longer uncertain, no longer searching for the right shape to fit inside their expectations. Not reacting, choosing. "I would decide what I am willing to lose." The words settled into the space, differently than anything I had said before, not filling it, not challenging it, but redefining it. My eyes moved between them, not avoiding, not submitting, not provoking, including. "I'm not something to be taken," I continued, "and I'm not something you already understand." A small pause, just enough to let it land. I decide what I become. The water stilled, not because it had to, because something in the room had shifted. And this time, they were not waiting for me to answer. They were deciding what I was. The contact broke, not gently, not cleanly. Something in Clotho jerked, not her body, not fully, but something beneath it, something that had been held in perfect alignment for years and had just been struck at the wrong angle. Her hand pulled back, not far, not enough for anyone watching from a distance to name it, but enough that the movement did not belong to her. For a single, suspended instant, she was not composed. Her gaze didn't track correctly. It didn't settle, didn't immediately reassert that calm, measured focus she carried like a second skin. It faltered, just slightly, as if something behind it had been forced open and had not yet decided how to close again. Breath caught, not visibly, but wrong. Lachesis felt it immediately. Her hand tightened at my shoulder, not in restraint, not in warning, but in recognition. Her attention snapping fully to Clotho, eyes widening not with shock, but with something deeper, something that had no place in Fenris. She saw it, not the vision, the wound. "Clotho," she said, softer now, and there was no doctrine in it, no correction, only a fragile, dangerous kind of understanding. Atropos smiled, slowly, not with surprise, with confirmation. The expression didn't spread across her face. It didn't need to. It lived in the slight shift of her mouth, in the way her gaze sharpened as it settled on me, not measuring anymore, not evaluating, recognizing. There it is. Clotho's fingers brushed her wrist where I had held her, checking, as if confirming that what had just happened had actually happened. For a moment, too long to be nothing, too short to be controlled, she did not speak, and in that silence, the structure of the room wavered, not visibly, but in the way everything seemed to hold its breath, as if the axis it turned on had slipped, just slightly, out of alignment. I felt it, the gap, the opening, and for the first time since I had entered the room, it wasn't them holding it, it was me. My wolf leaned forward into it, not cautious, not retreating, but claiming space, bristling with something that felt dangerously close to certainty. "You don't know me. You don't get to decide what I am. I do." The thought didn't soften. It didn't ask permission. "I will stand by my friends," I said, my voice steady, not raised, not sharpened, but placed. Clotho's gaze snapped back to me, too fast, just for a moment, just enough. "Because they chose me before the stones did," I continued, my eyes holding hers now, not challenging, not yielding, anchored. "Before Fenris did. The words settled into the space she had built and shifted it. Before you did. Silence. Not the controlled silence from before. Not the deliberate, weighted stillness they had held over me. This one was unstable. Atropos's smile deepened, just slightly. Her eyes glowed with something approaching excitement. Lachesis' grip on my shoulder tightened, not to pull me back, but as if bracing for something that hadn't come yet. Clotho inhaled, slow, measured, and this time it was an effort. When she spoke, her voice was smooth again, but not untouched.
Loyalty,
She said, and the word carried something new beneath it now. Not dismissal, not correction, but calculation, reassembling itself around a new variable.
is a dangerous foundation.
Her gaze held mine. For a fraction of a second, nothing moved. Clotho's gaze held mine, but it no longer carried that careful, measured alignment. Something behind it had slipped, not shattered, not fully, but enough that the control she wore no longer sat cleanly in place. And then it dropped. Her hand moved before the thought did. Fast, too fast to track cleanly, the motion sharp and instinctive, the kind that didn't pass through decision or restraint. Her nails caught the light for the briefest instant before they met skin, and then pain, bright, immediate, not deep enough to cripple, not wild enough to maim, but precise, deliberate in its violence, raking across my cheek in a line that burned as though something had been marked, not just struck. The world lurched with it. Water shifted around us, my breath catching, the fragile stillness of the room snapping like a thread pulled too tight. Clotho followed through the strike, not stepping back, not recoiling, but leaning into it, as though something older than her composure had taken hold and had not yet remembered how to stop. And then Atropos was there, just in time. She moved behind Clotho in a single, fluid motion, one hand catching her arm, the other settling at her shoulder, not restraining with force, but containing with certainty, anchoring her in place as the forward motion stalled against something immovable.
Enough,
Atropos said quietly.
apprentice.
No anger, no reprimand, just finality. Clotho stilled, not immediately. For a heartbeat, something in her resisted, not outwardly, not enough to break the hold, but enough that the tension in her body remained coiled, unfinished, the strike still echoing through her like something that had not yet found its end. Then she stopped. Her breathing was wrong, controlled, but wrong. Lachesis moved before I did. Her hand was already at my shoulder, guiding, not pulling, her presence shifting from witness to protection so seamlessly it felt like it had always been there, waiting for the moment to change.
Come here, half-pelt,
She said softly, and this time there was no testing in it, no evaluation, only quiet urgency, her other hand already lifting, already gathering something unseen. I hadn't realized I'd stepped back until the edge of the bed caught behind my knees. The pain hadn't faded, it sharpened. Heat spread beneath my skin, the thin lines across my face pulsing with a dull, insistent throb that made the world feel slightly off-center. My wolf didn't shrink, she didn't retreat. She stood, but she was watching now, measuring, learning. Lachesis' fingers brushed my cheek, careful, precise, her touch lighter than before, as though she understood exactly how much pressure would hurt and how much would heal.
Hold still,
She murmured.
You're brave for one so small.
Something in her hands shifted. No light, no spectacle, just a subtle tightening in the air itself, like warmth drawn inward, focused. The pain didn't vanish. It unraveled slowly, the sharp edge softening as the heat beneath my skin turned from burning to something steadier, something that knit instead of tore.
I've never seen anyone get under her skin like that.
Lachesis said, then caught herself, the words trailing off into something quieter. There was no judgment in it, just truth. Behind her, Clotho had not spoken, not yet. Atropos's hand remained at her shoulder, not gripping, not forcing, simply there, a presence that made further movement unnecessary.
She found your jugular, apprentice.
Atropos said, her voice low, almost thoughtful.
It is about time someone did.
Lachesis didn't look back. That's not the lesson she needed, Clotho, she said, sharper now.
No,
Atropos replied evenly.
but it may be the one she remembers.
The tension in the room hadn't settled. It had changed shape. Lachesis' focus returned fully to me, her fingers moving with quiet precision along my cheek, the sting dulling further as the skin beneath it closed. Not perfectly, not instantly, but enough that the damage would not remain.
No scars.
She said softly, more to herself than to me.
You don't need those yet.
Her thumb brushed lightly along the last line, the skin smoothing beneath it. Then, quieter still,
They'll come on their own.
she withdrew her hand slowly, her gaze lifting to meet mine, not searching, not probing, but checking, as though confirming I was still there.
They're not always so bad.
She said.
You're just not our typical Luna. Some of us learn this place from the bottom, and it leaves marks.
Her hand rested briefly against my shoulder again.
I won't let her do that again.
It felt like a promise, but not entirely to me. Behind her, Clotho finally moved, just enough. The air shifted again, her composure returning, not perfectly, not fully, but reassembling itself, piece by piece, around something that had not yet settled back into place. And this time, no one spoke, not because they were waiting, but because something had happened that could not be undone. Clotho moved, not sharply, not with any trace of the instinct that had just broken through her, but with a kind of deliberate reassembly, as though each breath, each shift of posture was being placed back into alignment by force of will alone. The fracture did not disappear. It folded inward, sealed beneath something smoother, something practiced, until what stood before me again was not untouched, but controlled. When she looked at me, the difference was immediate. She was no longer trying to define me. She was circling me, re-evaluating.
You learn quickly,
Clotho said, her voice even, composed, the earlier disruption gone from its surface, though not from its roots.
Faster than most.
I hadn't expected praise, or was it? My cheek still burned beneath Lachesis' touch, the heat settling into something duller, something that pulsed in time with my heartbeat, a reminder that the strike had been real, that the line I had crossed had not gone unanswered. My wolf did not shrink from it. She leaned into it, cataloging it, storing it, not as fear, but as information. She's changing tactics. My wolf pressed the warning into me. I wasn't entirely sure, but I trusted it. It had been right more often than I had. Clotho stepped closer, not invading, not crowding, but entering my space as if it were already something shared, something she had a right to stand within.
If you're going to survive here,
She said.
you will need more than instinct.
Her eyes flicked briefly to my cheek.
Instinct can get you bloodied or killed.
My wolf bristled, not in disagreement, but in recognition.
The pack decides what everyone's blood is worth.
Clotho continued.
Keep yours high, or you'll find it paid quickly.
There it is. Not quite a warning, not quite a threat,
You've already disrupted Derek.
she said, her tone shifting into something almost conversational.
That was not small.
Derek. The name didn't need to be spoken,
He will not forget it.
she continued.
Nor will his pack. You've created interest, hostility, and allies without even knowing it.
Interest, hostility, allies. She spoke of them like currency. My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. She wasn't describing danger. She was describing resources,
Both can be useful,
Clotho said.
if you know how to spend them.
Spend. Of course. Everything here was spent. Blood, friends, enemies. I felt the shape of it and didn't know if I wanted it,
Each full moon,
she said.
Fenris resolves its hierarchy. The Alpha Kings are not chosen quietly. They earn it. Strength, endurance, spectacle, combat when it comes to it.
My wolf leaned into that, eagerly listening.
You've already met one contender.
Derek.
There will be others.
Clotho said.
Better ones.
Atropos shifted behind her. Clotho didn't acknowledge it.
They will gather followers, deltas, betas, alliances, favors owed and traded.
Her eyes held mine.
Kingdoms are not given here. They are built, bought, torn down.
I could feel it now. Not safety, control.
And then,
She said, softer now.
the Luna chooses.
The words landed heavier, closer.
Your choice crowns a king. It determines which pack rises and which breaks.
My chest tightened, not because I didn't understand, because I did. They don't just want me. They want what I decide,
You will be approached,
Clotho said.
courted, tested, pressured. Some will try to impress you.
Others will try to take you,
Atropos' voice slid in.
and some will try to break you first.
My wolf's lip curled. Clotho inclined her head.
All of them will be watching.
The room narrowed, not with pressure, but with clarity. And then the shift.
You don't have to navigate that alone.
There it is, an offer. My wolf went still, listening.
I can show you how this works.
Clotho said.
Who matters, who doesn't, who will rise, and who is already falling.
She's not helping me. Well, she is, but not just me.
I can teach you how to choose in a way that strengthens you,
She continued.
instead of leaving you exposed.
Strength, protection, guidance, and underneath it, ownership, a collar.
And in return,
Of course, nothing here was free,
when the time comes,
Clotho said.
you will take my advice into your considerations for Alpha King.
The words settled, inevitable. Lachesis' hand remained at my shoulder, warm, real. Atropos watched, expectation. They're waiting to see if I step into it. My cheek still throbbed. My wolf did not forget, and neither did I. Clotho's offer did not press. It didn't need to. It sat between us, like something already decided, already shaped, waiting only for me to step into it and make it real. I could feel the edges of it, the structure, the way it narrowed the moment without closing it. If I spoke too quickly, I would fall into it. If I stayed silent too long, that would become its own answer. My cheek still burned beneath Lachesis' hand, the last of the heat settling into something duller, deeper, a steady pulse that reminded me exactly what had just happened, exactly what it had cost to push back. My wolf hadn't relaxed. She had gone still in that sharper way, alert and listening, her attention fixed not on the pain, but on the shape of the room, on the way the three of them watched me now. The human part of me wanted to shrink, wanted to run. I didn't think my father would send me here just to end up claimed. This was supposed to be safer than our pack. What had I left him to? What had he shielded me from? Was our pack this brutal or worse? My wolf pushed against that instinct, hackles rising, not in fear, but in warning. We were going to look weak. We couldn't look weak. We were Luna now. I took a slow breath and held it, forcing myself to settle. I would step into this role, but I wouldn't step into something like this blind. The stakes were too high. If I'm meant to choose, I said, holding Clotho's gaze just long enough that the words couldn't be mistaken for hesitation, then I need to understand what I'm choosing. The tension didn't break. It shifted, the focus tightening, drawing inward rather than dispersing. Atropos' attention sharpened, almost imperceptibly. Lachesis' hand remained steady at my shoulder, but I felt the slight change in it, the way she leaned in just enough to listen more closely. Clotho didn't interrupt. Good. What does it mean? I asked, letting the word sit between us without softening it. To be claimed. The air changed. Not dramatically, not in any way that could be named outright, but enough that I felt it in my chest, in the way my breath settled differently as the word stopped being something implied and became something held in the open. Lachesis' fingers pressed lightly into my shoulder. Clotho considered. Atropos did not. Claiming, she said, her voice low, even, carrying no more weight than necessary, and somehow more because of it,
Is not a ceremony.
It landed like a fact already proven.
It is an act.
My wolf tracked it.
Sometimes chosen.
Atropos continued, her gaze steady on mine. Pause.
Sometimes not.
Something in me tightened, sharp, cold, unmistakable.
If you are claimed,
She went on.
you are no longer singular. Your scent carries him. Your presence reinforces him. Your power feeds into his.
Feeds. My wolf's lip curled. Beside me, Lachesis shifted. That's one version of it, she said, her voice quieter, but grounded in something steadier. Atropos didn't look at her. Lachesis didn't need her to. When it's right, she continued, her hand resting more fully at my shoulder. You're not being taken. You're choosing someone who can stand with you and not break under it. Her thumb shifted slightly. You strengthen each other. You steady each other. A breath. You don't disappear. You become something new, together. Clotho stepped into that space without force.
Both are true,
She said smoothly.
Claiming is power, and like all power, it depends on who holds it and how it's used. If you choose well, you gain amplification. Your influence expands. Your voice carries further. Your position stabilizes.
Stabilizes. Not protects. Not frees. Stabilizes.
If you choose poorly,
She let it hang. I felt the rest anyway. And if I don't choose? I asked. Clotho's gaze flickered. Atropos answered.
You will.
Flat. Certain.
No Luna remains unclaimed forever.
My wolf stiffened. Why? I heard myself ask, stronger than I felt. Atropos lifted a brow.
Because nature abhors a vacuum.
She said.
And you are too powerful, too useful for a man to allow another to possess you.
She stepped closer, her hand cold as it settled against my arm.
Your visions are strong. Your magic will be stronger. That makes you valuable.
Pause.
And men kill for valuable things.
My wolf didn't flinch. Lachesis' hand pressed more firmly into my shoulder. But you'll have time, she said softly. More than most. A breath. I promise. I let that settle. Then, and if I attach myself to an alpha king, I said, my gaze shifting between them, mapping what becomes mine and what stops being mine. That one caught. Clotho's attention sharpened.
what becomes yours,
She said.
is your alpha's strength.
Her voice was precise now.
Standing in the pack, protection, influence. Your decisions begin to matter beyond you.
That sounded like safety, and underneath it, structure. And what do I lose? Clotho didn't soften.
Everything you were before.
She said. Clean.
You will not act alone. His enemies become yours. His failures touch you. His victories define you.
A pause.
You will share his bed, bear his blood, shape the next generation of Fenris,
Her gaze held mine.
as your mother did.
Shared, merged, bound, sacrificed. Atropos' voice followed.
If he is strong, you rise.
A beat.
If he is not,
Lachesis finished it, quieter. You will be taken from him. Silence settled again, but this time, it wasn't theirs. It was mine. My wolf didn't recoil. She circled it, measured it, turned it over. Romance, destiny, a bond, a weapon, a cost. They're all trying to shape what I choose. The thought came clean, clear, and for the first time since I had stepped into this room, I wasn't just reacting. I was learning how to choose. The silence that followed did not press the way it had before. It did not tighten around me or force itself into my lungs. It simply remained, patient and certain, as though the outcome of this moment had already been accounted for and was now only waiting for me to step into it and confirm it. Clotho stood before me with that same composed stillness, her gaze steady, her presence no longer reaching for me, but holding space for me to move into. It was a subtle shift, but I could feel it clearly now. She was no longer trying to shape my reaction. She was offering me a structure I could choose to inhabit, a framework that would hold me if I stepped into it willingly. And the worst part was that it made sense. Everything she had said settled into place too easily. The hierarchy, the games, the inevitability of being chosen if I did not choose first. The way power moved here, not through rules, but through people, through alliances, through bonds that were never as simple as they were presented. If I accepted what she was offering, I would not be blind. I would not be alone. I would have someone guiding me through a system that clearly had no mercy for those who misunderstood it. My breathing slowed without my permission, my body easing just enough that I felt the shift as it happened. My wolf did not growl or resist. She went quiet in a way that was more dangerous than either, her attention narrowing, listening not just to what was being said, but to what was being built around us. It would be easier. That thought did not come from weakness. It came from clarity. Accepting Clotho's offer would give me footing. It would give me knowledge. It would give me time. And then, just as that thought settled into something I could almost accept, something shifted at the edge of my awareness, not in the room, in the way I was looking at it. There was a column behind Clotho, half swallowed by shadow, where the crystalline light didn't quite reach. I had seen it before, without seeing it. The way you notice a shape only after it changes. Now it felt occupied. He was just there, leaning back against the stone, as though he had never been anywhere else, one shoulder resting against the column, posture loose, unbothered, completely at ease in a space that should have felt controlled by the Lunas, and somehow did not feel that way anymore. Victor. The recognition was immediate and absolute, not something I reasoned through, but something I knew, the way my body knew heat from cold. His eyes caught mine first, that unnatural green that did not reflect the light so much as hold it, glowing faintly beneath the shadow of his hood. For a moment, the memory of the sorting rose up behind it, not as a clear image, but as pressure, that overwhelming sense of something vast and ancient brushing against the world and bending it without effort. That same presence clung to him now, quieter, contained, but no less real. It didn't flare or push outward. It simply existed, like a storm waiting, without needing to move. My breath caught without sound. None of the others reacted. Lachesis' hand remained steady at my shoulder. Atropos's attention was still fixed on me. Clotho hadn't shifted at all, which meant either they couldn't sense him or they chose not to. The scent came next, threading through the heat and steam of the room in a way that made no sense and yet felt completely undeniable. It cut through everything else, sharper, that same pull of sandalwood and cedar. Something my wolf recognized instantly, even if I didn't have a name for it. She lifted her head, her focus shifted, and didn't return to the room. Victor didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched me the same way he had on the bus, the same way he had when Derek threatened me at the doors. Like he was always there at the moment where something crossed a line, when I needed him. His mouth curved slightly, a mischievous half smile, half smirk. Then, almost lazily, he winked. The gesture was so small it shouldn't have mattered, and somehow it did, because the moment it ended, he was gone. Not fading, not stepping back into shadow, not leaving in any way that could be tracked or understood. One instant, he was there, real enough that I could feel him, and the next, the column stood empty, nothing but stone and shadow again. The room closed back in around me without changing at all. The heat, the water, the weight of the Luna's attention. It was all exactly the same, only I wasn't the same. My wolf didn't chase what I had seen. She didn't question it. She didn't need to. Whatever it had been, real or imagined, it had already done what it needed to do. The path in front of me shifted. Clotho's offer was still there, still structured, still as logical and useful as it had been a moment ago. But now I could see the edges of it more clearly, not just what it gave me, what it would take. I drew in a breath and let it settle fully before I spoke, grounding myself in the weight of the room, in the presence of the 3 women watching me, in the quiet certainty that whatever I said now would matter. "I understand what you're offering," I said, my voice steady, not raised, not defensive, but held firmly in place. Clotho's gaze sharpened, just slightly, but she did not interrupt. "And I see why it matters," I continued. "I see what it would give me. That much was true. I didn't try to soften it or pretend otherwise, but I'm not ready to place myself in anyone's hands." The words didn't push outward. They settled, deliberate, chosen. "I need to understand this place on my own first," I said, my eyes holding hers, not challenging, not yielding, but anchored in something that felt solid beneath me now. "I need to understand what I am in it before I decide who I stand with." The silence that followed was different, not controlled, not guided, real. Lachisis's hand shifted slightly at my shoulder, not pulling me back, not pushing me forward, but resting there with a warmth that felt like approval she wasn't quite willing to name aloud. When I glanced at her, her expression had softened into something small and quiet and unmistakably pleased. Atropos, on the other hand, did not soften at all. Her gaze held mine with that same sharp, unsettling focus, and after a moment, her mouth curved into a faint, knowing smile that carried no comfort in it at all.
"Again,"
she said, her voice low and measured.
"you surprise me."
Clotho did not smile. For a brief moment, her composure held perfectly, as if nothing had shifted at all, as if the refusal had landed exactly where she expected it to. But something beneath it tightened, something subtle but unmistakable. The structure she had been building forced to adjust rather than settle. She inclined her head just slightly, the motion precise, controlled.
Of course, she said smoothly. Understanding is important.
The words were flawless. The tone was flawless, but they no longer carried the same certainty they had before. She turned away then, not abruptly, not with visible anger, but with a purpose that was just a fraction sharper than it needed to be. Crossing the room, she moved back to her space and sat with a quiet finality that did not draw attention to itself, and yet made it clear that the moment had ended on her terms, or at least on terms she was choosing to accept for now. The room settled again, the tension loosening just enough that I could feel the shift without fully relaxing into it. Atropos's attention lingered on me a moment longer before she turned away as well, her expression unreadable now that her interest had been satisfied for the moment. Lachisis's hand remained at my shoulder for a second longer, then gave a small, reassuring squeeze before she stepped back, leaving me standing in the space I had just claimed. My space, for now. I drew the curtains closed around my bed and let myself fall onto it. It was more comfort than I had ever known. Back at my father's house, we had been permitted 2 mattresses on the floor of a room in the house we served. It was dirty, small, it made sense, and somehow, with him beside me in that cramped little space, I had always felt protected. But here, in this overstuffed monstrosity, hidden behind curtains that shut out the rest of the room, I felt somehow infinitely more exposed. The tears were already running down my face. Before I realized they had started, I choked back the sob that followed and pressed my hand hard against my mouth. I couldn't show weakness, not anymore.
Stay close, little wolf. If you're still with us, leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Then come back for the next chapter. The pack is still building, and there's never a boring night in House Fenris.